Thank you all so much for being here. It's a real honour to host this. Now, I am not in the program and had no intention of speaking. 3 of our speakers couldn't make it here today, and that's because they were all doing the right thing. One of them is isolating in Catherine, and the other 2 couldn't be here because they were supporting sick women in their lives. And I was incredibly humbled by that. They made the right call because that's where we should be, supporting those that we love. So I hope that you're okay with me taking this speaker spot. And in much the same vein as my dear friends, Professor Marianne Vinsalic and Katie Wolfe, I'm going to speak about my father and family life because he was my hero. And oh, there he is. That was his 50th. We had a pretty fun night. And surely we haven't aged at all. So I was really fortunate. I've grown up in a very loving family. My parents are still together after nearly 50 years. And not only do they still like each other, they actually still love each other. And it's so disgusting at times, it really is. And I guess if you can gauge the level of love by how many times your brothers pinned you down and farted on your head, then I am an incredibly loved woman and very blessed for that. Now, my dad was head of Customs Drug Squad, so people thought that he was quite a hard man and quite tough, but that was never the relationship that we had. I hardly ever slept as a child, and he was a night owl. So I literally spent 4 hours with my dad every night when everyone else was in bed. And we had a really close relationship. And he did some hilarious things. It might have had a few wines when he did these things, actually. He wrote a note to school that said, "Rebecca doesn't want to do legal studies because she thinks it sucks." But he signed my mother's name. And so to this day, she's still wondering why she gets, side looks like a heathen in this Christian community. And please don't tell her, it's much funnier that she doesn't know. And then I was studying for my exams for year 11 and it was history. So I was like, "Dad, can we run through some dates to help me with this exam?" And he's like, "Not now, Beck. I stole this doll from your mum's work colleague. She loves it." And he was sitting there cutting out letters in the newspapers and the magazines because he was making a ransom note. So it's always good to know to, keep the child within. But there were consequences growing up. I was being grounded one day and I don't know why because I'm clearly perfect. And I went through day 1 of grounding and I'm still throwing a tantrum and it's day 2. Still kept going. 10 days I threw that tantrum. I got 10 days of grounding. But at day 8, one of my friend's birthday parties was on. Now, they pick you up in a Rolls Royce. They hire out the whole movie cinema. And they have canapes, which to me was the height of sophistication. And I wasn't able to go because I was still grounded. Now, I begged and pleaded for the whole year. "I'll be grounded for the whole year if you can let me go to this party." I washed cars, I did dishes proactively. What child does that? My mum pleaded with him, this friend's mum pleaded with him, even my fart-filled brothers pleaded with him. He didn't budge, so I didn't go to this party. And as the mother of 3 children, I know why those lessons and those consequences need to be in place and followed through. We grew up with Sicilians. We're actually English, but someone clearly crossed a borderline a few generations back because we kind of look a little bit European, right? So I grew up with Sicilians and they really didn't like me. I'm female, I'm not Sicilian, and I'm extroverted. I'm like pond scum. But my dad always said, "Stuffenbeck, you just be you, and if you're yourself, then I've got your back." So you fast forward 20 years and I can only imagine the horror that my dad felt when he received a call from my mother that his pregnant daughter was nearly murdered last night. And the horror again and the shock that this same daughter went back to that man and had another child. But it's because she wasn't strong enough yet. The thing with family violence, and when your partner's taken away by the likes of police, it's a really funny feeling because it feels like someone died. Your whole life is just ripped out from under you. You were going to have a baby, got a house, you've got a really bright future, and it's just gone. And then you really need to be more withdrawn and distrusting of people, because when that person's taken away, I know that you're all rejoicing about it and you're all happy about it. But I'm grieving. So almost 4 years ago, when my partner was arrested again, I was stronger. I remembered that I'm that man's daughter, and I left. But it doesn't end there. Earlier this year, I spoke at the No Woman Left Behind conference. For the first time, I shared my story. And I don't believe that it's coincidental that the abusive messages and some unforgivable actions that I certainly won't be going into here started again. But I'm stronger now, and I have wonderful men, some of them in this room, like you, that helped me. So I messaged those men that I trust, and I let them know what was happening. I did not stay silent. And just from them knowing and having that understanding, and I believe Mark Motlop said this earlier, it helps. If people don't know, then they can't help. I also went straight to my lawyer and got a cease and desist letter. You will be receiving a DVO, and for all of the violence that you've inflicted in the past, it's mandatory imprisonment. So send that abusive message and just try me. And then I moved house because I feel safer not being in the same suburbs. So this is just one man, right? This is not a reflection on men, and I love men, as you can see. But I feel that because of those respectful relationships that I was shown as a child, that I have been able to be objective and fair and not have that bitterness or that anger towards men. Now, most don't have that supportive foundation, which is very sad. So I need to say to you to please acknowledge your power, because the support that you offer to your women, what you say matters, and what you do matters. So what you do and say gives them the courage to know that those relationships aren't positive, to get out of violent relationships, the courage to know when to call it, and the courage to be ourselves. You are all so powerful. And if it weren't for great men like you, I would not be here today. And I thank you.